All right, so I know a lot of people think I live in Portland, but I actually live right across the bridge in Vancouver, Washington. When I was growing up in the Portland area, Vancouver was considered kind of the armpit, like it was, a place where there was a lot of crime. But it's actually a pretty nice place. We moved here in 2004, bought a house on a whim, and got lucky right before the housing crash. And we've lived in this little ranch house ever since. It's not a bad place to live, but it's not the greatest. The homelessness issue out here is not as bad as it is downtown, obviously, because I'm basically in the suburbs. The standard late 1960s ranch homes. But down the street from here, there was a homeless camp recently, and I think it's cleared out by now. But during the COVID crisis, there was a lot of homeless issues out there. My wife and I had seen how bad the freeways were. I actually made a pretty long YouTube video back then about cleaning up garbage on the freeways because I give her all the credit. My wife started this group and completely organized it because she was out of work and she wanted to do something. The freeways were gross. So she started going out and volunteering with these groups to clean up the roads. Well, they wouldn't allow her to do the freeway meridians because it was too dangerous. So her and I went out on a Sunday and cleaned it all up, and it really made a difference. Looked good. People want to help their neighborhoods, help their environment, and because people give a shit. Most people really care about where they live, but there are going to be some people who don't. And the same thing happens with the homeless community. You know, there are people who care and people who don't. The difference is that the homeless community lives on land for free and generally pays no tax, which is fine. Hey, I understand people live on hard times, so it's tolerated. But what happened in Portland the other day was kind of an eye-opener for a lot of people. So, Portland, Ted Wheeler, the one who's gotten a lot of crap because of being too liberal, they passed a law that said that homeless camps cannot exist within, I think it was 150 feet of a school. So look, my property alone is only like 100 feet, but 100 feet ain't nothing. It's like 150 feet is like the smallest amount of space, right? And they said you just can't camp within 150 feet of a school because kids should feel safe. Now, not only did the homeless raise a stink, but at City Hall when they announced it, some lady actually jumped over the barrier and tried to run up to the front of the court. It was crazy. People are saying homeless people need to have a place to sleep. I'm guessing a lot of these people have a home that are talking about this. Give them a place on your floor, is what a lot of people would say. Now, 5 years ago, I would have a totally different opinion about this. Be like, hey, look, I'm all for homeless people should be able to camp wherever they want. Then I started seeing them set up all along Marine Drive right on the river. I'm like, why shouldn't I go set up a giant tent down there so I can go hang out on the river all the time? You know, well, a lot of people need help and a lot are just taking advantage. Knowing the difference is the hard part. And I have a lot of empathy. So here's what I'm saying. I'm all for people being able to camp and to pitch their tents in places. But when you're setting up right in the middle of the sidewalk, and when you're setting up your tent near a school, and you think that's okay, as kids are walking by, that's bullshit. And I think the homeless community needs to learn to police itself because there's going to be a lot of problems otherwise. People have already tried to light fires. I hate to say this shit, but people have lit tents on fire. People have beaten homeless people. Somebody was throwing pipe bombs at homeless people in Portland, homeless camps. There's a lot of violence going on for various reasons, and people are angry, they're upset, and they don't know what to do. But back up for a minute and realize the person who spent their whole life working just to have a peaceful place to live with their neighbors. And they look out in their front lawn, and there's somebody literally camped on the sidewalk in front of their house. I mean, how would that make you feel? And I think a lot of the people who totally support it, they don't get it because they don't have to deal with these problems. I'm not saying they haven't worked to, have their own space, but a lot of them just don't literally have people camping on their property or adjacent to them. And this makes it really hard for people to have empathy. Do I think it can be solved through public funds? I don't know. There was a statistic thrown around when I did the research that said $30 billion would solve the homeless crisis permanently. But I really don't buy it. 30 billion is a drop in the bucket. We spend, say 300, that's 10 times. We spend about 30 to 40 times that amount per year on military alone. And I doubt we would even drop, 4% of the military budget then. 3% of the military budget supposedly could fix homelessness. But a lot of people have a very legitimate question about, why should I fund through my tax dollars other people's homes? And it's totally understandable. It's the same way I feel, which is unpopular opinion, that they should not forgive student debt. I don't care how much you spent on your schooling. I don't care how much it cost you. You signed the papers. You went to the school. Student debt forgiveness would pay people who are still making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. They'd forgive their student debt, which part of the whole point of taking the debt was the reward you would get. Yes, I think schools are messed up and they need to be fixed, but you don't solve the problem by making taxpayers bail out people who took bad loans for schooling, even though those loans ended up paying off for them and they made, more than the average person. God, life is complicated. You know what I mean? All this shit is totally complex. And, hey, if I'd gone to school, I'd want to bail out too. But I didn't go to school because I didn't want to take a loan that I couldn't pay back. I'm not dumb. And maybe people just need to take accountability for the decisions they make. But I don't know. A couple of years ago, I would have been considered maybe a socialist of sorts. But today, I have a completely different opinion because I realized if you believe that socialism is the answer, to put it simply, you believe that allowing other individuals to take care of how things are distributed is better than letting individuals do it. So what you're doing is saying that the average individual is too corrupt to handle business. We need to let the government do it, thinking that people in the government positions won't be corrupt. And it's a very simple concept. It's like, okay, who do you trust? I trust the individual, because I think that if people don't feel coerced to spend their money and waste their economy and their time on other people when they don't want to, then they'll do it on their own free will, because most people do want to help, because it's built into the human nature and the genome to help each other. But we feel threatened all the time. People always feel threatened. Therefore, they're pointing at the Mexicans, they're pointing at the Jews, they're pointing at the gays. It's always been this constant battle of somebody who's destroying the fabric of society, and it's not funny, but it's pretty absurd when you really think about it. Like, just being a human, we don't even know what the hell it means, we've been trying to figure this out for how long now? We have all these scientific discoveries and, hypersonic travel, but we don't know who we are or what consciousness is. It's just how it's meant to be. And that's just life. And we should be happy about it, because that's how it is. Talk to you next time. Bye.